Hi, it's Tom here from Running Physio. That's a good start, isn't it? Still slightly sleep deprived from our puppy, so as you can tell, getting my words a bit confuddled already. But today's video, we're going to talk to you about treatment of tendinopathy. And we're going to talk to you about some new research that looked into trying to answer the question of whether adding other treatment options, things like laser therapy, night splints, massage, etc., to exercises actually enhances our treatment of tendinopathy. And I'm going to try my best not to get my words all tangled up and make a better job of explaining things to you. Let's talk a little bit about tendinopathy before we dive into some brand new research in this. We know that tendons can be challenging and that treating people with tendon pain can be a slow process where it can take time for things to change. And naturally then, because we want to help people get better, we often think, well, let's add other things in. What about adding some massage? What about adding in some electrotherapy, those types of things? We want to add them in to see if we can speed up the process for people. And often people ask us if we can bring these things in, but perhaps they're getting a bit frustrated that things aren't progressing. But we do want to see, is this actually adding anything? Does it help? Does it get better results? Is it worth the patient's time and effort? Is it worth perhaps an extra expense for them to bring these treatments in? Or should we just stay the course with the exercises? And that's what we want to try and answer in this video, and looking at some of the new research in this area. Now, if you want to learn more about the treatment of tendon pain, we've got a great selection of videos for you. Do check out the link. I promise in those I won't get my words so confuddled. So do check those out. Lots of videos there. We've got a really good one on lateral hip pain, gluteal tendinopathy, Achilles tendinopathy, all sorts of things. So do check that out. So let's talk about some new research. A paper just published in 2022 by Aurora et al., which is actually a systematic review that tried to compare the use of physical modalities, including things like low-level laser therapy, night splints, and orthoses, with eccentric-only exercises. So they're looking, if we add these treatments, if we use these physical modalities with eccentrics, do they actually outperform just eccentrics on their own? And this was mainly in Achilles tendinopathy in this review. And then what they wanted to see is, does it change things like the VISA-A, which you might be familiar with? It's a really good questionnaire for assessing outcomes in Achilles tendinopathy. Does it change the pain scale? Does it change load-related pain? So they did this systematic review, and they ended up including studies of a number of different treatments. So shockwave, laser therapy, night splints, orthoses, and A-stim, which is tool-assisted massage, to then see if adding those to eccentrics got better results. So here's what they concluded then. That the physical modalities combined with eccentric exercises are not superior to eccentric exercise alone in producing significant improvement in terms of VISA-A, NPRS, which is your pain score, and load-induced pain at both short-term and long-term follow-up time points. So it seems in this recent systematic review that the addition of these treatments didn't seem to make any difference in the outcome measures, either in the short term or the longer term. And this actually mirrors some previous evidence by Stephenson et al. That looked to compare just one session of eccentric exercises, so being taught exercises to go away and do, versus doing that plus 18 sessions of massage. And there was no difference in the long-term outcomes when adding 18 sessions of massage for people with Achilles tendon pain. So what this evidence is telling us is, it seems for a lot of these treatments, adding them in is not an additive effect. And if you think about that study with the 18 sessions of massage, imagine that patient's paying for that, which is often the case. That's going to be a significant cost for them, both financial cost and time cost. It's also a treatment that can be quite painful. So if it's not changing things, it's not really worth bringing that in. Now, I always try and see, how does research fit in with what we see in clinic? Does there seem to be a big disparity there? And I must admit, I wish hands-on treatment made a massive difference for tendinopathy, but in my experience, it doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to create any lasting change. Now, we might want to think, well, why is that then? Why can't we, zap it with a laser and make the tendon better, or massage it and make it feel better? Well, I think it's because of a number of different things. So one, very few of these treatments are going to make much of a difference to the load on the tendon. And we know the load seems to be really important in the development of pain. If it's excessive load on the tendon, we may well then develop symptoms. So if these are not changing the load on the tendon, it may well then not change symptoms. The second point is, does it change the tendon or the person's ability to cope with load? Is it going to make us stronger? Is it going to improve our power? Is it going to improve our load tolerance? Well, again, massage or laser therapy, night splints, they're not really going to do that. They're not going to change our capacity to manage load. They're not going to make us stronger. So if the treatment isn't affecting the load on the tendon or our ability to cope with that load, perhaps it's not massively surprising that it doesn't seem to change outcomes. And the third thing is, does it actually help the patient's understanding? Does it change their beliefs? Does it alter their behavior in any way? I think probably not. It doesn't reframe the pain in a positive way, particularly. It doesn't enhance their understanding or management of it. So I'm not surprised that a lot of these physical modalities don't seem to make a big difference. Now, I think we also need to be careful with any research that we don't, conclude that, yes, that's it, that's systematic review, it's nailed it, we don't need any more studies in this region. This recent one by Aurora et al. Is only 8 studies. And it's only looking at the comparison of those effects. So the physical modality and eccentrics versus eccentrics alone. So we need more research in that area. There's also some limitations in some of the studies in terms of the dosage and how these treatments were used. So there's still a question mark there, like there are in many other areas. And if I was going to choose one of the treatments that they've looked at in this study to consider in a bit more detail, it probably would be the shockwave. Now, we've got some recent research from Abdelkader et al. In 2021 that we talked about fairly recently on a Clinical Edge video that actually did show some good results from shockwave. So if there was one treatment from this that I would think about considering in a little bit more detail, it would be shockwave. But I would try the exercise, the load management, the education first. Get that in place first, because in many cases it's effective. We might want to consider shockwave if we're not seeing good results at around about that 3 to 4 month time point. But for most people, we don't need to go there. Now, this Aurora et al. Review also included orthoses, but only one study on orthoses. And again, we have some fairly recent research, I believe Rabusin et al. 2020, that found a simple heel lift within the shoe was actually pretty effective as an option for Achilles tendinopathy. So it might be that we consider some simple things first of all. Simple, low-cost things like a small heel raise within the shoe, rather than going down the route of multiple sessions of some form of hands-on treatment that probably is less likely to change things for the patient. So keep it simple. Look at your load management. Look at your graded exposure. The more and more I work with people with all sorts of different injuries, not just running injuries, but just generally, I think graded exposure to goal activities is so important, and it really can't be replaced. Look at education and understanding the condition, and then look at some form of progressive rehab for tendinopathy. Now, you'll see if you read across a range of different research in tendinopathy, there are lots of ways to approach it. So yes, there is evidence to support eccentrics, your Alfredson protocols, but they're time consuming. One study found they take 308 minutes per week, which I believe is about 5 hours for people to do. And they don't always address the underlying deficit in terms of strength. So we might want to consider a heavy slow resistance training program that starts at about 15 repetition max and builds up to anywhere as heavy as 6 rep max over a period of 12 weeks. Less time consuming. It's going to be doing it 3 times a week rather than twice a day, and it does seem to be better at addressing someone's strength needs to help them get back to their activity. Even things like isometric only protocols are now starting to be studied and has shown some quite good results from I think it's Chris Clifford et al.'s work in gluteal tendinopathy. So there's lots of options available for us with our loading. The real important thing is finding a start point that's manageable with the patient and gradually progressing them to where they want to be. The exact details of it, I think, are probably less important. It's more about a reasoning process for the individual than following a recipe that we have from our research. Okay, so to answer the question we've asked here is, do adding these extra treatments on actually lead to better results than exercise alone? It appears to be, from the research we've got at the moment, the answer is probably no. But get the basic things right. Get the patient to help them understand the condition and progress them to where they want to be, and you're much more likely to get better results rather than bringing them in for hundreds of sessions of things that may not make a big difference. And sadly, we do still see that a lot out there clinically, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it. I've seen patients that have had over 30 sessions of ultrasound for tendinopathy, but no one's ever given them a rehab program or advised them to adjust their training or help them even understand what's going on in the tendon. So I think it's important we move away from these things if they're not effective and focus on what really works. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I managed to get through that without muddling up my words too much more. And I'd like to hear from you. Do you think I'm giving these treatments a bit of a hard time? Are there things that you think are really valuable for tendinopathy? We've mainly focused on Achilles tendon treatment here. There's not a lot of evidence elsewhere. So I'd like to hear from you in the replies and the comments. Thanks once again for listening, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye for now.